two, and a one. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Exposition table. I'm one of your hosts, Joe.
And I'm the other host, Dan.
Alright, and on this episode, as seen last time on the Exposition table, we are talking about remakes we do want.
Oh, hang on a second, Joe.
Last time on the exposition table, we talked about games that we didn't want remade. And this time, we're going to remake the discussion.
Da, 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 da.
Oh no, but Dan, you, you just copied that music, and now in a remake, we're gonna have to get a new soundtrack for it.
Damn. I'm gonna have to remake this remade intro.
So yeah, like we've already talked about what makes a remake beforehand, but I guess since we start off on a negative note, we have to say that when a remake is done well, it can do wonders for a piece of work,
A
bringing it
lot of
to a new
times,
generation, uh, are standing off some problems that are caused by its age.
yeah, a lot of times a remake can really go the extra mile and honestly make a game better than it was before. Um,
Yeah.
if you want to sort of open the floor with any remakes that you have enjoyed, if not as good as, if not better than the originals, Joe.
Yeah, like okay, like guess like the pretty much like the first example of a remake that always comes to mind are like Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. They took Red and Blue and the structure that worked by putting it on an engine that works. And if those games have always kind of stood out as being like the quintessential remakes in that sense. It's like the same general game, but built from the ground up with some modern, at the time, touches.
Yeah, Fire and Leaf Green in many ways really is the definitive version. Even better, even better than the other remake, the third time that they did Kanto.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, honestly, I would say that Fire and Leaf Green. Yeah, they really just took everything that the original games did and just brought them forward. And many cases will be made that Heart Gold and Soul Silver did that even better for Gold and Silver. While I personally think that they're about equal in terms of qualities, the originals and the remakes, I certainly can't fault anyone for saying that Heart Gold and Soul Silver is the superior version of the game.
Yeah, there's a pretty good argument to be made.
Yeah. For me personally, the probably like one of my favorite remakes of all time. One of my favorite games growing up was Crash Team Racing, and the Nitro Fueled version just takes everything that was good about the original, cranks it up to 11, adds in all the tracks from Nitro Kart, rebalances them to fit the team racing mechanics, and adds in cosmetics and characters and a whole ecosystem that, while admittedly kind of scummy, they added in microtransactions post
Yeah.
launch. On its surface level, was a really good addition. And I can't. That's easily become one of my favorite games of all time. It might even beat the mainline Crash games for my favorite Crash game. It's so good. It's so good. And
Yeah. It's the game you liked before, but with more stuff and a modern standard.
yeah, yeah, took what I liked before and brought it forward. I mean, you could argue that that's a remaster, but I would argue there's so much done under the hood to really bring it forward that it elevates itself to a remake.
Yeah.
Which is also something we talked about last time that was a little bit murky, is what's a remake, what's a remaster,
Yeah.
what's a reboot. Um, Not to overly tread the same ground, we'll kind of just address that. We'll probably talk about remakes and remasters pretty more closely in this conversation.
Yeah.
Full on reboots, I think we'll mostly avoid talking about those.
Yeah.
Like Final Fantasy VII remake. deceptively is not just a remake; it is a full-on reboot. Resident
Yeah,
Evil 2 and 3 really kind of border on a reboot and a remake. Yeah,
yeah,
we'll kind of tread lightly as we go, but I mean, this is all for fun anyway, so who
yeah.
fucking cares?
If we're wrong about this, we're not the first people to be.
Yeah, everyone's wrong about it. Square Enix is wrong about it. Before we get into the main subject, was there anything else that you wanted to add into this?
Yeah, nah. I think that no, no, I don't think I have too much to add.
All right, then let's get on with the first game that we want to discuss. I'll let you take the reins on this one.
All right. So the first game I'd like to see remade isn't actually a game I've played before, but a game I want to see remade because this franchise has had a notoriously awful track record with making their older content available, and is kind of, at least in the Western side of things, has had its roots kind of hidden, despite the series generally calling back to its earlier entries a lot. And that is Tales of Fantasia, or Tales of Destiny. It doesn't necessarily have to be the first one. But the Tales series has had a sizable history that has never really made a proper entrance to the West. And, just hasn't been redone at all. And, those games date back to, like, the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, I can definitely see where that's coming from. Just to even just give him a shot in the arm, in terms of reception, even if it's not, even if the games themselves are good or bad or whatnot. Uh, just looking at little bits of gameplay of them, yeah, there's definitely some areas you can improve them, and just give those games a little bit more of a chance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's all we want a remake for is just to give a shot in the arm.
Yeah, and, like, outside. I mean, it's had a couple remakes, but they've always been of games that were just on, like, a handheld or, like, a different console that was relevant at the time and then just bring it forward. Like Tales of Hearts or Graces. But like remaking an old game, they haven't really done that, as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean, mostly they'll just remake games that are already popular and already playable, like the one, like the one they're remaking.
Yeah, like they're doing like a remaster of Tales of Symphonia, a game that they've come under fire for never being able to quite remaster well.
They're just taking content off of it.
Yeah. Oh man, like I don't know. I think a series with such a storied legacy as the Tales series, it's kind of weird that they haven't really done much in the way of revitalizing a lot of their older games.
I guess sticking with I guess we'll keep a theme going. We'll talk about Bandai Namco games of the PS1, PS2 era. Uh,
Mm,
Briefly to talk about that another game that I was a really big fan of on the PS1 that did get a stellar remake, arguably the best remake ever. Pac-Man World had an amazing remake on PS1 for the new consoles, and that took everything that I thought was could have been better about the original and just brought it up to 11. And another game that really could use that same treatment would be Pac-Man World 2, a game I've wanted to love for many years, but never quite been able to click with the same way. And I think a repack version of that game would be outstanding. It'd be phenomenal.
yeah,
Like, there's not much to really say. It's not really a game that a lot of these games we don't need to go into a technical oversight of how you'd make them better. It's just like
we kind of know
Pac-Man
what
World 2 is a
you're getting into with a remake, especially like Pac-Man World 2, where we've already seen them remake a Pac-Man World game.
Yeah.
So,
I
just
think I think with this one, just consolidate down like the best of both versions because there's a lot of content between the Western and Japanese versions, and kind of just consolidate them together.
yeah,
But honestly, if they just decide to go rogue and just do some new weird changes like the repack did, like Pac-Man World Repack was ambitious in that they actually did a fair amount of changing of things. Like they obviously had to change Miss Pac-Man to Pac-Mom for legal reasons, but they did a lot of restructuring that like really refreshed the entire gameplay physics. The mechanics got
yeah,
refreshed. Um, Having a better frame rate honestly really helps. I mean, naturally, it was gonna have a good frame rate. It's like
yeah,
it's really impressive how much more you can get out of the game when you can move at what feels like a good speed. Like
yeah,
when I played the game, even only a couple years ago, I was basically just playing to survive. Whereas now I can play like a Sonic game where I'm just doing crazy spin, sequence breaking and stuff, like rebalancing the bosses and everything. Like they did some adding new cutscenes, restructuring the hub map, stuff like that. Like they could easily clean up Pac-Man World 2.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, I definitely think there's a
yeah.
lot of potential in there.
I liked Pac-Man World 2 when I played it back in the day, and you know, that's a game I'd like to see revisited.
Yeah, nothing more complicated than that. Just give it the old spit shine like you did the first one.
All right, for a game I have played a decent chunk of, but I haven't really finished because I played the PS3 re-release of it a year or two back. Actually, a couple years back at this point. It has been a little while, but a beloved game made by a Sony studio. Um, I'd like to see a Legend of Dragoon remake.
Yeah, I'm surprised that that's not been announced at this point.
Like
Or
like a fair number of people are like clamored for it, and honestly, yeah, I'm kind of one of them.
yeah, it's one I've always had to hear people talk about. It seemed like it never really got the attention it deserved, despite being a really high profile Sony title. The fact that they were even considering putting the main character, what's his name, Dart, in
Yeah,
PlayStation All Stars, I think really goes to show that even to this point, like the franchise is still well regarded within Sony. So, and with their constant desire to just remake everything now, I'm kind of surprised
they
that
haven't
Legend.
really done this.
Yeah, like they could, Western it up, add in some Western RPG conventions and stuff, and just do it. Kind of seems like if they're gonna remake, Demon Souls and like Shadow of the Colossus, it kind of feels like you're gonna see Legend of Dragoon before you see like Dark Cloud or something. you know,
Yeah, like nah, and since RPGs have been getting a resurgence in the past 5 years,
yeah, especially on PS5
yeah, it feels like the right time to just do it.
or whenever there's a 5 or 10 year anniversary, whenever that next one lines up.
Yeah,
I don't know when Legend of Dragoon came out, so I can't
I
answer
think it
that.
was yeah, it was 1999.
Oh, so yeah, maybe in 2024 we'll get a remake.
All right,
By then you can buy a PS5.
yeah, just in time for it to start leaving. I don't know. This generation
Well, we're gonna
feels
be
like
having the PS5 Pro then,
yeah,
but that's a different conversation. That was just a quick jab about the still you can't get a PS5 gigs. Moving on to things that you can still get in large quantities. Let's talk about a console that you can get very easily. The Wii. So the Nintendo Wii has a lot of weird games that are probably never coming back. I don't have a lot to say about this particular one because I only just thought of it 5 seconds ago before getting into my actual next topic. So I'm just gonna mention this real quick. We really should bring Wario Land Shake It back. You don't have to remake it; you could just remaster it. But really, just bring that back and bring back all the Wario Land games. Bring back Wario World. No, I'm gonna screw my conversation about the Wii, Wario World. Give me that game. I love that game. It needs another fresh coat of paint. Put it out, make it like 30, $40 or so. Make it compatible with WarioWare. Get it together somehow. Just do it. But it was
everybody
actually, hmm?
everybody loves Wario. Give people a reason to remember his older stuff.
Yeah. As far as what I was actually gonna say, a game that it's again. This is more so. I just would like to see the IP come back. But honestly, I would like to see this game properly get remade for controller, like for controllers and not just motion controls. Although the motion controls really were great. Uh, I'm I'm derailing here. Mad World. I would
I
love
was
to see
just
it.
thinking about that when you're talking about the Wii.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. I want to see Mad World come back. Like it already looks great on the Wii, so you could just remaster it. But it would be nice to see like them kind of go through and sort of like do a more in-depth remaster of it.
Yeah,
Like really kind of get the most out of that art style. Um, just as long as it doesn't look like Anarchy Reigns, I'm fine. Anarchy Reigns is I don't know, we don't have enough time for me to get into my issues with that one. But as long as you keep the graphic, the Sin City style, art style
yeah,
that the original had. Like Mad World's a fantastic game on its own, so you really don't need to change a whole lot. Just a couple restructuring things, a couple difficulty balances, a couple maybe add a few more stages, kind of add a little bit better flow to the game because it
yeah,
can be a little bit weird sometimes playing. Just a couple things,
yeah.
but honestly,
Where?
don't have to do. Give me Mad World.
Yeah,
Get the original. Get some of the original composers on that soundtrack, like what's his dude name, Ox or whatnot. Get some of the original composers to come back and make some more songs.
yeah. Um,
If No More Heroes can get one, then its spiritual brother, Mad World, deserves one.
yeah. Um, I don't really have a good place to plop this down, but I guess since we're talking about a Nintendo console, and this is a franchise with a history of remakes, and people have been guessing this game's going to get remade for a long time. I would like to see Fire Emblem 6, The Binding Blade, get a remake, like, relatively soon. Obviously after Engage. But, like, people have been speculating on this game getting remade for years now. And, the game Roy is from still is not available legally to a Western, well, anywhere outside of Japan, really.
Wait, that one's Fire Emblem 6? I thought that
Yeah.
one. Wait, we got Fire Emblem 7 though, right?
Yeah, we got 7, which was a prequel to
It isn't.
6.
Oh, that's why I was like, because 7 has Edelgard. Not Edelgard. What's his name?
Lynn and
Elleroy.
Elliewood.
Elliewood.
Yeah.
Elliewood.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood. Wait, that's where they got the name for it. Elijah Wood's entire career has just been a reference to Fire Emblem this whole time. That's why he got cast in Lord of the Rings.
4 years for the creation of this game.
Exactly. And that's how he got put in Spy Kids 3 as a reference to Smash Brothers.
Yeah. But yeah.
Because Roy always gets bodied immediately in competitive Smash. That's why he's the guy in Spy Kids 3.
And he's somehow better in Melee than he is in Fire Emblem 6.
Oh, would that be the Fire Emblem you'd pick the most to get a remake out of all of them?
Whether or not it's the one I'd like to see remade most?
Because I think at least for this, we should probably do
Yeah.
one per franchise, since we're going to be hitting up a lot of different ones, a lot of different
I'd
consoles, and
say
a lot
I'd say
of
it's at
topics. We
least,
should probably.
yeah. In the context of right now, it probably is at least tied for the one I want to see most. It
I
is.
have zero opinion.
I've played this game a few times, but yeah, I definitely like to see it ironed out a bit. Obviously, just a remake of a GBA Fire Emblem, which a lot of people like have a lot of attachment to that specific era, and it is my favorite GBA Fire Emblem game. So, partially it is a me thing, but it is partially a just want to see the community get what it wants.
You know what's a game that's more likely to get remade, made by intelligent systems that I would actually be down for, despite the current trend of Nintendo remakes being kind of played out at this point?
What's that?
Surprised you couldn't guess it already. But I guess I need to just fold and just tell you already.
All right, okay, yeah, all right. So I'm picking up what you're putting down. I thought you were going to take a jab at Advance Wars getting shoved into the ether, but
Yeah. Well, that's never coming out. That's done. That's
yeah,
vaporware.
that franchise got killed again by none of its own problems.
Yeah. It
Um,
was that game was a literal casualty of war.
yeah, that game will not advance. But yeah, a Paper Mario remake.
Yeah, remake of Paper Mario 64 feels exactly on brand with what Nintendo would do right now. I can exactly see it in my head.
Yeah,
One of those, let's recapture the old fans and add a few new features, but mostly keep things the same as the original. Have a new art star, charge $60 for it. But you know what? The original Paper Mario honestly could use a couple touch-ups. It's not a bad game, but I do not desire to replay it very often. However, I think in a lot of narrative and thematic ways, I kind of like it more than the Thousand Year Door. Which Thousand Year Door is great, but there's just a specific charm to the first Paper Mario that I feel like the Thousand Year Door doesn't quite match the same way. They're two different kind of styles.
yeah.
Like I think if I had to pick, like if Paper Mario One played like the Thousand Year Door, I'd probably prefer Paper Mario One every day.
That's a
Um,
take I can sort of get down with.
yeah, and it's again, it's not because Thousand Year Door is bad. I just kind of like I splitting hairs, but yeah,
Yeah,
key thing is that I would totally be down, especially if they really double down on the current arts. Well, okay, I say double down, but maybe like one and a half down on the current art style. Because if they go double down, they might overplay the paper gimmick.
yeah. You might have
Like,
them flopping around like Parappa the Rapper or something.
like if they can really play into it, like visually, like
But
you
still
know,
retaining the writing and general
yeah,
feel of the old one.
yeah,
Because yeah, despite my grievances with how Paper Mario went, I will not complain about the visuals.
yeah, yeah,
And
I would be totally if they can like just fix some of the core issues with the first game, like the fourth world just being downright terrible. Just clean that whole thing up. Just fix the Shy Guys playroom or whatever it's called. Just
yeah,
fix it. Uh, I'm not a big fan of the seventh world, the flower one. That could use some polishing and make it so that when you hit a certain level, you're not getting zero experience for killing enemies. Make the make the partner system closer to the Thousand Year Door
yeah,
where like they can last more than one hit. You know, just simple revisions. And I think they would specifically not. Well, I mean, I think Paper Mario is already on Nintendo Switch Online, so maybe it's a little bit too late for that. But they could still charge you 60. They could find a way.
yeah. They could find a way to sell you the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty good at it.
Yeah, slap on like an ultra spicy mode.
Oh yeah, and some cooking. Just put some cooking in there. That'll do it.
Yeah,
Put the cooking in from Super Paper Mario.
Goombario, we need to cook.
Yo, Mr. Mario.
Yeah, give voice acting, but only to Goombario's advice.
Get Chris Pratt to do it.
All right. Speaking of voice
Like,
acting, it's a game that sometimes has voice acting and sometimes doesn't. That used to be on everything under the sun, but no longer is, and the company seems to be determined to destroy it.
there's a lot of franchises that can really be under the umbrella of, so
We need a Rayman 2 remake.
We need a remake is a very key thing, not a port, a remake.
Yeah,
Because Rayman 2 has enough ports to last a lifetime.
but like Rayman 2 is honest. Like we've said this in episode 1, Rayman 2 is like really freaking good,
Yeah.
and I seriously think that a remake could really be a serious contender.
I think I've unintentionally played it on like 3 different consoles, not realizing they were the same game, and they were all great. You know,
Yeah.
I had it on 64, I had it on a DS, and I think I had it on something else. And yeah, I enjoyed it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just quick and easy. Just remake that thing. You could probably remake Rayman 1 as well, but that would probably be like a cheaper digital or thing or something like that. Probably closer to like how Kalinoa got remade.
Yeah.
Only if you put Rayman Math, which is like the hardest Rayman game.
Just get. Yeah, that's pretty much what I gotta say about Rayman 2. It's like the game kind of speaks for itself, but we just need a reminder of how good it is, and you know, Rayman could use the content.
You know what else is a game that predominantly features characters who don't have arms?
Ooh, what's that?
A game all about masks. Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex.
Ah, yes. I played this game very recently. Well, 5 months ago, but recently cosmically.
I mean, okay, I haven't played this game in a couple years, but cosmically, that's still recent. You could have not played this game since 2002, and cosmically, you'd still have played it recently. But anyway, hey, what are you looking at, Fuzzhead?
Oh man.
Don't change the voice acting at all. Do not. Just let them use the original voice actors. Unless you want to bring them all back, I'm fine with bringing. But how are they going to get Jess Harnell? Joke is in the current games. Yeah, how are they going to get Jess Harnell? Yeah, just I don't even redo the voice acting. Sure, the story is terrible. Fine, if you want to redo the Cortex voices and Crunch, but leave the masks alone. If you're not going to do a whole new game with them, just leave them alone as is.
Yeah, because like if we're talking about a game that could potentially benefit from a remake, Wrath of Cortex is one of those.
Dude, I desperately wanted to see Wrath of Cortex get somehow, some way released as like a DLC for the Insane trilogy or just something.
Yeah.
I was really hoping they were gonna bring that one forward. Because of all the Crash games, it really is the one that needed the remake the most.
Yeah.
Next, after Crash 1, Crash, well, not after, but
Crash 1 is going to
even
get
more,
remade either way.
even more than Crash 1, Crash the Wrath of Cortex really, like, there's a good game under there. It is just stuck under so many fundamental problems. A lot of them just mechanical and technical because of the
Yeah.
mess of the behind the scenes of this game. And if any of that cut content could have gotten restored,
This is a potentially good game dealt a really, really bad hand.
yeah. And while you're at it, just throw in Twin Sanity as well because Twin Sanity, I like it. I think it's a good game, but it's very obvious that it's a rushed game.
Yeah.
Very obviously incomplete game. So any way to bring that content forward would be really appreciated.
And we
Yeah.
already know by experience, these games can make a lot of money.
They can make a pretty decent amount of money for the amount of work they'd have to put in. I don't think it would be that expensive to do.
Yeah, like you already have the foundation. At least for Wrath of Cortex.
I'm sure they can modify one of the other engines to make it work just fine. Or they can make Twin Sanity play more like Honestly, Crash 4's physics probably would fit Twinsanity better, especially because Twinsanity has like the Cortex and Nina gameplay, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and Crash 4 has Cortex and you know Tawna's grapple and
Yeah.
ding it. You can make it work. You can usually use Crash 4's engine. And hell, if you just want to be consistent, fine. You can use Crash 4 and Crash 4's engine for Crash the Wrath of Cortex as well, if that's easier. Whatever, they're gonna do Wumpa League, so just fucking they want.
Yeah. Regardless, the point being made here is that we want to see this game, these games get another shot.
Yeah.
I would love to see a good version of Wrath of Cortex.
Oh, absolutely. I would be because I think a good Wrath of Cortex would be it would make me happier than the actual Crash 4. I can talk for quite a while about my feelings on that one, but we will save that for another discussion.
Yep. All right. Oh yeah. A pretty quick one I want to bring up. This doesn't necessarily have to be a remake. A remaster would work just fine. Pikmin 1 and 2, I just want to see redone. Like, those games are still really good. They just, they could use a visual overhaul. That's about it.
Yeah, Pikmin 3 hasn't done enough to destroy Joy-Cons. Let's get Pikmin 1 and 2 in there as well.
Yeah, and honestly, I just want to do that because I want a modern Pikmin game that a human can control.
Yeah.
I've got issues with Pikmin 3, although most of that really just stems from too many captains. Which
Too many.
obviously,
Too many.
obviously, like 1 and 2 wouldn't have that problem.
Oh no, they're bringing in the captains from Pikmin 3. You
I
have 4 captains
I'm
all the
trying to.
times, and you can't turn them off.
I'm imagining what Pikmin 1 would look like with 4 captains. I
Well,
feel
for the
like,
daily challenges you have to now do,
man.
and the fruit you have to gather to get your ship's energy. Try to
Pikmin 1
retrofit
plus
every
3.
Pikmin 3. Try to retrofit every Pikmin 3 mechanic into Pikmin 1. No Nintendo franchise would try to do that. Speaking of, well, I don't have a good transition for this, but let's just cover the other Nintendo franchise we got on our list right here. Let's talk about our old pal, Mother 1.
Yeah, Mother
Yeah,
1.
let's talk about all the Mother games. Let's just lump them all together.
Yeah, like,
I know
okay.
specifically you got some stuff to say about the first one, but I think all 3 of them might as well just get the redo.
Yeah, might as well just do them all, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But fundamentally, what's the big issues with 1 more
alright.
specifically?
I mean, Mother 1, like, thematically, it has a lot going for it. It just really suffers from being an RPG on the NES.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much the best way to put it. It's like, yeah, like, it has touching narrative beats, it has a nice pace to it, but it's an RPG made in 1989 on the Famicom.
Yeah.
Like, its problems kind of speak for itself. It's
Yeah.
clunky. The maps kind of look all the same.
And unfortunately, there isn't a lot of incentive for that to get remade on its own, because they're only just now releasing the English ROM of the
Yeah.
game, and there's no reason to release it on its own when you could just release it in a compilation, because uh, Mother 2 is one of those Super Nintendo sequels that's really also just kind of a soft remake, reboot of the NES game, kind of like
Yeah.
how a lot of Link to the Past is kind of like a soft reboot of Zelda 1. Super Metroid's a soft reboot of the original Metroid. Mario World's
Yeah.
kind of a soft reboot of Mario 3.
And
so on and so forth. But like, Mother 2, you look at, there's a reason why people don't know who I can't even remember his name, Ninten. you know,
Nintendo.
because he just looks like Ness.
Yeah.
Because as far as people are concerned, it's just Ness because the difference is the same dude, you know.
Yeah.
But so there's really no reason to remake it on its own when you could also just be remaking Mother 2 and Mother 3. I'm surprised they didn't remake Mother 1 and put it on like the GBA and use the same engine as Mother 3, but I mean Mother 3 also came out in like 2006 and was already well near the end. So I guess that's actually the reason I just
Yeah.
answered it. They ported the games. But yeah, I think the DS era would have probably been the best time to remake those games. Still have them be 2D, but like have them on like a fresh engine. Like if they were to remake all three of them, or even just remake the first two and put them on a DS card or something, I think that would have been the best course of action. Not that they can't work on the Switch. I just feel like you have to really go in with like a Link's Awakening style
You
remake.
know, I'm imagining like a more simple, less harshly lit HD 2D, and it's kind of looking good in my head.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. It's just I don't think Nintendo would do that. I think Nintendo now, because they want to charge you $60 for it, would go with they would go for, which would also be great if they could do the claymation style of the original like manual and like promotional artwork.
Yeah.
um, I think that would be cool, but I also wouldn't mind if they just, I don't know, for me, I'm picturing in my head the best remake era would have been like a low poly or like a sprite based like DS or 3DS era
Yeah.
remake. um, just with the chibi style, I think it would have looked, hell, even if they did it on the Wii somehow, like WiiWare remix, like in a 3D
Yeah.
style, kind of like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I'm just saying, I think it would lend itself well to something like that, where you don't need to change a lot. I feel like the Switch might. I hate to say that having too much power, and then saying that console has too much power is the Nintendo Switch. But I mean, like Link's Awakening is not what I would want that remake to be. I hate it sounds insane, but I think a less powerful system would have really given them the ability to rein it in a little bit more, and they wouldn't have gotten so out there with the way they did. I guess real quick to quash it. The Link's Awakening remake is certainly not bad, but I'm not a big fan of the overly plasticky art style, the overly toyetic one, and they would not have been able to do something like that on something like the Wii or the 3DS. They would not have the resources, so their ambition would not have gotten so high. And I worry that with a Mother collection, they would try to be over ambitious with the art style and not just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that pretty much covers it. Other than the fact that we mentioned Mother 3 because the world needs to see that game, and
Yeah. They need to remove all of the things that are keeping it from coming over. They need to remove anything. I mean, look, there's not a lot of things, but there are just enough things that they would need to drop from the game to bring it over to the West. We don't know exactly the reason, but there are definitely things that are blatantly keeping it from coming out. So if they could just take them out, censorship, all that. Look, those are important things to concern yourself with about having a pure experience and the original intended experience. But also, it's not coming out if you do that. Mother 3 is not coming out if you keep it exactly the same. There need to be some compromises, whether they copyright reasons or ratings restrictions
yeah.
reasons, whatever the reason is. Things about that game need to be changed, or else it's not coming out.
Yeah.
Proper remake is the best way to do it.
Yeah. Um. All right. Not quite a Nintendo game, but a game with origins connected to Nintendo. A game that I would like to see remade is well, a pretty seminal classic. Another one we've talked about in the Nintendo 64 episode. And since quite a few platforms have had successful remakes, I think it's high time we see a Banjo remake.
I can see that. Me personally, I'm not 100% sold on that, but I do want to kind of hear your take on what you think they would do with a Banjo remake, or what the purpose would be besides just revitalizing the brand.
I mean, that is ostensibly the reason. Like enough people are vocal about it. Just giving it the insane treatment, even if it's just 1 and 2.
I guess that's fair. Get an
Yeah,
excuse to try to get a Banjo 3 out of there.
yeah.
So you wouldn't want to give him a, you wouldn't want him to throw in nuts and bolts and see if they can fix that up on a modern engine.
I
Have them all consistently play the same.
I feel like they wouldn't, just because like you kind of want to just do the first two, just to, I guess for the same reason why they didn't do like Wrath of Cortex or whatever.
You don't want to do the ones that people don't like.
Like, and 1 and 2 are more alike than either one of them are similar to Nuts and Bolts. So like,
Oh, you know what? That's why, because they're gonna do in Banjo 3, they're gonna be like a joke, like, wow, I can't believe I've only had 2 games since this last time. Gee, it sure would be weird if there were other games. Crash 4 did that.
yeah.
I'm not sure it wasn't fucking funny when they did it. I mean, Banjo would do it, but they would be British, so they'd find a way to make it funnier. Well, more so, they just have talent. Oh man, I'm being really mean towards Crash 4 right now.
Yeah, seriously. I'll find out why when I play that game eventually. Now that it's on PC.
I'm just waiting for it to drop on Game Pass. Yo, Activision, you want to get bought by Microsoft? Daddy Phil, you want to buy them already? There's a lot going on with the legislation. Point is, yeah, I think I could see it. Me personally, I don't really need it. Banjo is already playable on enough consoles right now. I think I'd rather they just do a new one. Like I don't Banjo Kazooie. I think is frankly like a near perfect game. Um,
Right. Understandable.
and Tui is fine. I don't really. I haven't really given much time of day to Tui. Frankly, it doesn't seem like I would click with it. But I'd rather they just make a third one than
Yeah.
bring it back, bring the other two back, because you can already play Banjo Kazooie on the Switch Online. You can already play Banjo in like 3 different ways on the Xbox. I I just don't think there's a need to bring that particular game back. I think just making a proper sequel would be the better approach for Banjo.
All
Um,
right.
like it's one of those, if they didn't have so many ways to play the original and like it wasn't so clearly emphasized as a nostalgia property.
Yeah.
Like if it was just a completely dormant IP since like the N64 days and they didn't bring it back a bunch, then yeah, I'd say a remake. But Banjo has kind of lived as a retro brand. You can play my classic games, kind of like Pac-Man. It'd be like trying to remake like the original Pac-Man games, or anything kind of like that. It's like you can play them a bunch of ways. So, but no, I could see a solid improvement with Banjo Kazooie. Oh, not really. I think Tui might benefit from the remake.
All right. I wouldn't fight you on it, but I don't know. I just think it'd be neat. But yeah, I would
But
prefer a new game over a remake.
you know what? N64 3D collectathon platformer made by Rareware on Nintendo 64. We can both agree definitely should get remade.
Yeah, Donkey Kong 64 has so many of the makings of a great game, but for various reasons misses that mark. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they definitely they definitely could do a lot with that game. That game is another one where fundamentally there's a good game underneath it. It's just marred by so many issues, technical, mechanical, design wise, that if they just did a from the ground remake of it, I think they'd figure it out. I think they'd figure out the best approach. But like, there's a lot of ways they could handle it. They could keep the same game philosophy, but just make it play better. Like, if Donkey Kong moved like Mario and Mario Odyssey, I think the design and the repetition would be as tedious. If they trimmed the repetition but kept the original, not the original frame rate, but like, the same kind of somewhat slower speed, I
Yeah.
don't think it'd be a bad thing. It's just you got to do something with it. They could completely redesign all the levels and all the maps and rebalance them. There's a lot they could do. There's a lot of possibilities. They need to do something with it, though.
Yeah. Like, there's so much you can kind of approach a remake like that. That, like, just kind of listing all the things you could change, just adjust. Because that's the thing about Donkey Kong 64 is I don't think it's like individual parts of it are pretty good. It's just they don't coalesce gracefully enough. And just
Yeah, everything just doesn't. I don't have fun playing it. It feels like a checklist. It feels like a chore list. It doesn't feel fun. They were so ambitious with if they could make a big game and not with can we make a good game.
yeah. And in this modern era of gaming, we've had so many games work around how to make a big game work.
Yeah, we've really entered a zeitgeist of big games that feel attainable. Like every major Nintendo franchise has approached it. Kirby finally had a 3D semi-open, well, no, not open, but like a more open scale platformer.
Yeah,
And with all those rumors about the Mario Odyssey team working on a Donkey Kong game, I feel like if they were to do something in the vein of DK64, I think it'd be fine. I think it'd work.
yeah.
I just thought of the dumbest idea though, Joe. What if this whole time they were working on a remake of Donkey Kong 64 in the Mario Odyssey engine, but the only way you could play it was by owning the Nintendo expansion pass, as a callback to having to have the expansion pack to play Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah.
Silly one, didn't I?
Oh man, I'm looking at things. Um, any more before you get to the big one?
I wanted to talk about this one. Ironically, our last conversation made me reconsider my perspective on it, so I'm not going to bring it up again. Last time, I talked about Metal Gear Solid and how I did not want to see it remade, or at least Metal Gear Solids 2 and 3. But since then, I have changed my mind slightly. I still don't think 2 and 3 should get a remake, but I kind of was alluding to the fact that I think the first three should get it remade, and I really do think Metal Gear Solid, honestly, should. I think Metal Gear Solid should get a full-on remake.
Yeah.
Um, I think fundamentally the story is solid. I just think mechanically it needs to be brought up to scale. I think the game
Yeah.
is still remarkably cinematic. Like, you don't need to really change the direction of the cutscenes. I mean, obviously they would, but
Yeah.
like narratively, I think it still holds up. Visually, holds up as well as a PS1 game can look. But
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of just like putting a fresh coat of paint on it. You can even throw it in like the Metal Gear Solid 5 engine. It'll work fine. I mean, yeah, you'd have to retool it, rebalance it, but I think
It'd
you
be
could
very
make
well
it work.
worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could even find a way to make Shadow Moses Island work in the Metal Gear Solid 5 engine and do like a more dramatic reinterpretation of Metal Gear Solid 1. And hell, you can make that some kind of canon thing, like how they did little nods to it in Tweed and Snakes, how they, acknowledged it was kind of a remake. They
Yeah.
can do that again. Make it a simulation for the big boss imposter guy that you play as.
Yeah.
Hell, they can tie it into another. They can make this Raiden's training. The ending of this remake, you're actually Raiden, doing his training before Metal Gear Solid 2. Because if you don't know in the story of Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can't explain to you the Metal Gear Solid 2 storyline right now. But they can find a way to. Kojima could find a Kingdom Hearts style way to make this game canon. as a separate entity from the original as well. If Kojima was involved, of course, he wouldn't be involved because he's not with Konami anymore. They need to remake the Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku series and make it basically like Kakarot, but with all of the side stuff from Legacy of Goku. I need to be able to go bring a man an open-faced club sandwich so I can go to Hercule City. Where's my Dragon Ball without the open-faced club sandwich? Where's Dragon Ball without punching wolves in the face in the woods?
Yeah. It's not Dragon Ball if Goku doesn't get folded by a wolf immediately.
If I'm not punching worms and they explode with a like I'm punching a wet balloon. Oh, and you got to make sure that the solar flare is the most OP ability.
Yeah, I need to recreate Solar Flare Punch Punch Punch. Solar Flare Punch 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 against Frieza.
Like Legacy of Goku 2 and Boo's Fury are fundamentally actual good games. Although I will say that I've been seeing lately a lot of criticism about Boo's Fury's level curve. Basically, the later two are good, but could use some reworking. And the first game is terrible. So, and with all of these remakes, they always give the most attention to the first game, which the three it needs the most attention. So,
Yeah.
you know, you could argue that Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is the remake all along, but I would like to see the approach, the narrative approach they did with the Legacy of Goku games, and just some of the extra side content that was in there.
Yeah.
I mean, they could just do another top-down style and not do an open world, but I don't know. Maybe I just wish Kakarot was a little sharper. Little.
Alright.
Something about those Legacy of Goku games, a particular charm. I think just all the weird side stuff that they invented. But yeah, I think we've held off long enough to get on some of the big boys.
Yeah. You know what game needs to be remade? Warcraft 3. I don't know why they never remade it. It's such a classic.
Yeah, man, especially now it's like really difficult to play Warcraft 3. There's so many technical issues. They keep trying to override you and run you into some other game called Warcraft 3. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Some kind of reforged bug every time you try to load it now.
Yeah. I don't know. We need a Warcraft 3 retried. Or something.
One of those you fucked it up and made it worse kind of remix.
Seriously.
No,
If we're talking about remakes we hated, oh my god, like, Warcraft 3 Reforged makes me angry.
I never played it, so I didn't mention it last time. And I'm surprised you didn't mention it at all in the previous one, but I guess that's fair.
Because, yeah, like, you know, you probably know from experience then. It is hard to get me truly angry.
Yeah.
That game pisses me off to no end. You took the original, actually damaged it in the process, bastardized the modding scene, made a game that was generally received as being a masterpiece, and making it barely function. You downgraded a classic,
And made it impossible to play the original.
made it impossible to experience the game in its previously great state, and then you just dropped it like a bad habit.
Insanity. Absolute lunacy.
Yeah. So, like, you know, if you want to pretend like you never did this and you right all your wrongs, I mean, I'm not sure if I could forgive Activision Blizzard. But you know, I'd like to see Warcraft 3 made good again.
It'd be nice to see. really nice for the people who enjoyed that game to get a good remake. I think that's really bad remakes or really bad releases really muddy the waters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it time, Joe? Is there any other franchises, any other games that you can think of before we get to what will really be the centerfold point of our conversations here? We'll probably be spending the rest of our conversation.
Yeah. Alright, yeah, it's time. It's time to talk about why we need to port Sonic Adventure 1 again.
I was gonna avoid talking about that, but yeah, Sonic Adventure is another one where it consistently keeps getting worse the more they bring it back, and I could talk for a while about how the poor quality of the ports has completely deteriorated the public reception of the Sonic Adventure
Yeah.
1. I've been playing the 360 version myself lately, which is based on the Steam version, and I'm having a bad time, and I'm like, I would rather be playing the Dreamcast version right now. I
Port
am
the
actually
360 version to the Switch, and then port that version to mobile
terrible version.
with
Terrible.
with Denuvo,
I thought you were gonna say a cloud version, but no, this is worse somehow.
and then make a cloud version.
Based on the mobile version.
Yeah.
Because the Switch can't run a mobile game natively.
Apparently can't run a PS2 version natively.
Yeah, I mean, it can't run Kingdom Hearts and it can't run GTA San Andreas.
Alright, so let's talk about the real game that needs to be remade here.
Let's actually pose the question: which Sonic game deserves a remake the most?
Like, like we've talked about this
I
in
mean,
game.
look, we all know the actual answer, but let's humor the other answers first. let's circle around to it. Let's
Yeah.
humor some other games
Alright.
before we get to the one.
Yeah. We've talked about why they shouldn't remake it as they are. But you know, if Sonic Team gets their shit together, I'd like to see an adventure remake.
I think Adventure 1 would certainly benefit. I think we talked about it a little bit last time, but I think Adventure 1, based on what they're doing with Frontiers, would be a solid idea to remake.
Yeah.
They clearly have a lot of desire to capture that feeling. Most of the 3D games, a lot of the 3D games really try to capture Adventure 1 particularly.
Yeah.
Sonic Unleashed, which was known as Sonic World Adventure, really kind of captured that, environment and talking with the native people and,
Yeah.
kind of building those relationships. Sonic 06, you know, is in many ways like Sonic Adventure, you know, the
Yeah.
original in a lot of mechanical ways. Um, so it's clear that they have a lot of, well, it's clear they did have a lot of passion for that particular game.
Yeah.
And yeah, if they could get it done right, I would certainly be happy to see Sonic Adventure redone.
Yeah.
Uh, this one's a very mild one, but I would be ecstatic if they could bring back Sonic Shuffle. I know that game's not even good, but I would be happy to see it
What
back.
if it was?
I mean, somehow it's not even the worst Sonic Party game on console. Somehow they made a worse one in Sonic and the Secret Rings. It's not even the worst Mario Party clone that Sonic's ever had. Um, I, yeah, I don't know. It's never gonna happen, but I would love to see Sonic Shuffle go.
Yeah. But a remake is not in the cards.
And it's not hiding on your VMU either, so someone could steal them from you. Uh, we did have a couple other ones that we wanted to talk about. Do you think Heroes or Shadow deserve remakes and or would get remakes? We've already talked before that Adventure 2 we kind of don't think that modern Sonic Team can really do. So we're gonna just move past
I'm gonna be
Adventure 2,
real
focused
with
on
you. Um,
yeah.
Not only is this game like actual, like I kind of hate how bad this game is in my opinion. I mean, of course you'd hate how bad something is, but that's a stupid sentence. But I have no faith that they'll be able to do its potential justice. I don't think they could do a Shadow the Hedgehog remake, like at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. I don't think. I think at most you'd be able to get a remaster, like keeping things mostly the same, but just upgrading the graphics and maybe fixing the engine. But outside, like basically like how SpongeBob and Destroy All Humans are,
Yeah,
where it's like the same game, they just prettied it up. I think that's about as good as we can hope for Shadow the Hedgehog.
yeah. Heroes,
I mean,
there's a decent argument for Heroes.
I think Heroes doesn't need much more than a polishing. Um, like I don't think Heroes is great, and you'd have to rewrite the story to make the story even tolerable. But like I think that can get away with just getting a port. I think Shadow fundamentally needs like a redo, like a
Yeah,
whole redo.
like I think the problems with Shadow the Hedgehog are so deeply rooted that I don't even think it'd be worth doing.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Because Shadow has so many fundamental problems.
Not to
Like
mention
it's
that,
one of those.
not to mention that you'd kind of have to remake the adventure games before even touching it. And
Yeah,
Heroes,
there'd be no contextual reason to just play Shadow the Hedgehog isolated from itself.
yeah, I feel like that game kind of just there's so much wrong with that game's place in the franchise.
Yeah. Uh, I guess while we're still dancing to it, do you think they should uh well, here let me ask you, how much money would you spend if they announced that the same people who are like doing those remakes and remasters of the Konami games and the Mega Man Battle Network games were doing the Sonic Advance trilogy? How much would you spend on the Sonic Advance trilogy?
25.
Like $25 for all three of them? You wouldn't even go for 30?
Third. All right. I initially thought 30, and then I thought that was too much.
You wouldn't, well, they would fix the fucking screen, they'd zoom it out. I kind of feel like
Oh
that'd be an
yeah,
obvious fix for it. Like, well, I
yeah,
guess maybe I should have said the people. Yeah, I should have said Christian Whitehead, but I'm sure that the people who are making like the Mega Man Battle Network collection, also, if they were in charge of the Sonic Advance games, could figure out how to zoom the screen out.
yeah. If they fix the screen crunch, then
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
that edges up to 30.
I think that would fix a lot of the issues Advance Two has. I mean, it wouldn't fix all of them, but it would fix some of the level design issue by actually letting you see where you're going.
Yeah,
The insane speeds and weirdly speed oriented slope downhill level design would be improved by the fact that you could actually see where you're going.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean if they just announced that they were doing a Sonic Advance trilogy and just I mean yeah, there's a lot of things they could do. But just if they did like an I can't say like a Sonic Origins because Sonic Origins sadly has too many problems.
man. It really hurts to expect anything from Sonic Team, does it?
Isn't this my favorite? This is like my favorite game in the franchise. We'll have to get. We'll have to come back to all this.
Yeah.
There's so many things we could talk about that we want to save for later topics, so we don't get off where our own topic is now. But yeah, all right. Let's just get to it.
Sonic 06.
Let's talk about it without talking about Project 06 at all.
Yeah. If there's a Sonic game with potential, it is 2006. Right? I think I'm right. Uh, but yeah, no. Trying to see what this game would look like if it was truly complete. No, I can't hear any background noise.
Much for the audience. So much for the act of discretion. I wish I had a magic candle I could blow into and I could erase this and start all over again without any memory or consciousness of what happened. And amount of handkerchiefs, but that's a different game that needs a remake.
A game that is partially to blame for how 06 turned out.
Yeah. Let's just get that out of the way. Sonic and the Secret Rings, like, that game just stop. Just don't let it exist, you know? That game is a big reason why 06 turned out so bad. Is that they were forced to split their team in half. But yeah, Sonic 06, I think has a fairly decent story. That with some proper rewrites could be made actually good. Like Shadow's individual campaign is solid. Silver's individual campaign is okay. Sonic's individual campaign kind of sucks, but with a decent rewrite, rescripting, you could actually make it cohesive and good
Yeah.
and kind of work. Mechanically, just like either de-emphasize the amigos or just don't have them.
Yeah.
I mean, I like having extra playable characters. I'm trying to think. We were off the podcast. We were discussing sort of ideas like this, and I came up with some kind of suggestion for the Amiga, but I can't exactly remember what it was.
Hmm.
It's fine. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think trying to, because I wouldn't want them to do the Adventure 2 style, where like 9 playable characters all have their own different levels and themes. I think, oh yeah, you know what I was saying is that it feels like Sonic 06 is like the evolution mechanically for Heroes in that regard, where the whole idea of having multiple playable characters eventually evolved into the idea of just switching
Yeah.
mid-level to different segments for it. So if they were ever remake Heroes, they could use that style. But yeah, I think fundamentally the Amigos aren't like a big issue. It's just that most of them suck because they're undercooked for this game. But you
Because
wouldn't
the
have to worry
entire
about that.
game is kind of undercooked.
Yeah, you wouldn't have Amy randomly turning invisible and then losing all her momentum when she jumps.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have the military robot being the weakest character, but also the fastest character.
Yeah, like as long as you have a good base of movement, then most of the characters wouldn't be a problem.
You know how like Blaze the Cat got like I think at least one, if not two, entire dedicated levels where you don't switch to silver. Like, how did they accidentally make one of the side playable characters the best playing character in the game? They somehow accidentally made Blaze like the best controlled character.
But yeah, nah, I'd be overjoyed to see 06 just done justice. The ideas it had brought to the table.
Yeah, maybe it'd be nice for that game's positive traits to be acknowledged. It also would be a good way to sort of reclaim that era in general, that
Yeah.
style of Sonic. You
Because
know,
what better way to prove that this formula can work than by redeeming the game that ruined it all?
yeah, the game that's negative reception and negative reputation has effectively destroyed a part of the franchise's identity. Having friends, having overly ambitious storylines, having sincerity, all that stuff just thrown out the window.
Yeah, because this game that had those things sucked.
Yeah. And then despite the game after it having a lot of those things not sucking, it got a worse critical reception somehow. And Colors happened. And yeah, Black Knight had those things too, but Black Knight was also a weird spin-off that no one liked gameplay wise, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. But yeah, Colors had none of those things, but it had arguably good gameplay, so people liked it, and it felt nostalgic, and that game sold well, and now it's the one that everyone uses as the basis for what Sonic is now. It is a defining game, and had 06. I think
not.
at this point, yeah. Although I think at this point this is reductive because we should be talking about how they would remake it, and unfortunately I'm a little too fixated on how would the franchise's history have diverged, rather than the actual product of a remake now. Them
Okay,
remaking now isn't going to change the past. So, despite the whole point of the game being about changing the
changing the
past,
past. Yeah,
yeah, I think just cleaning up the script would also
yeah.
just fixing some of that
Clean up the
dumbass shit.
script. Like obviously, just being on a better engine means you don't have the loading times. Just a
Yeah,
better game feel would just make the game. That's the thing about '06. That structurally it's fine. It's just on a technical level, it's a disaster.
yeah, it feels rough and stiff to play, despite the fact that I think the level design is fine. Which is why when you're a kid, you can play '06 and think it's perfectly okay because the level design's fine. And when you're a kid, you suck at games, so you don't really notice if the game doesn't feel
Right?
as good.
Yeah.
Especially considering that Heroes and Shadow also kind of had weird physics. This had different weird physics.
Yeah.
Like after Adventure 2, they never quite figured out Sonic's physics in a like slower moving space like this, because afterwards they just would go with the Hedgehog engine with Unleashed.
Yeah.
So everything post Adventure had like a weird offness. So it's like when you're going from two weird games to another weird game, it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
you're just used to it, you know.
Yeah.
So like there's a reason why a lot of kids, like myself, played '06 and, knew it wasn't as good as some of the other ones, but I didn't quite dislike it. I didn't have any resentment towards it. I could beat the game just fine. Uh, but I certainly wasn't going back to it all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, there's a million things you could say, like, here's what I'd fix here, here's how I'd improve this here, but I think it would really go to make a statement about what the franchise's ideals and beliefs are. I think it would. I think Sonic 06 really, by Sega itself, shouldn't be considered a laughingstock. I think it's. I think they've done small measures to kind of, you know, take steps back from that.
Yeah.
But when it's constantly used by the punching bag of its own franchise, I don't know, that feels disrespectful to not only your own lineage and your own history, but obviously the
Yeah.
real people who went and made this game.
Yeah.
Like, hundreds of people spent years working on this project, years, trying to make this something special, and for you to so quickly dismiss it as like a funny meme. Like, it's one thing to acknowledge its faults. It's another
Yeah.
thing to shit on it all the time. Ironic. It's been since generations, I think, since we've had what feels like decent representation. Yeah, having like Mephiles show up in a mobile game, sure, that's representation too. But I mean, it's a mobile game. They're just gonna throw whoever the hell, whatever JPEG they have left over on their hard drive. If they could find a way to make the President's Secretary from Sonic Adventure 2 playable in a Sonic, whatever the hell it's called, Sonic Forces for
Yeah.
mobile, they'd do it. They got a floating JPEG. If they could still use the echidnas from Sonic Chronicles, they'd already be in this game.
Yeah.
So that game ain't getting a remake ever.
But yeah. Nah. It feels kind of weird to just say '06 but good, but on a mechanical level, that's basically what we're asking for. We're not.
I don't think '06 as it is now is even the worst mainline 3D Sonic game. I think it's certainly below a lot of them, but I think it has a lot of positive traits that are sadly outweighed by severe, like, technical and mechanical issues.
Yeah.
I think at its core, there's a lot of really good in there, or at least very decent. Fundamentally good enough. I'm not expecting a remake to be a 10 out of 10 for Sonic '06. Sonic 6. You gotta be realistic. Like,
Yeah.
just even at its best, it's not gonna live up to some of the best Sonic games. But I think a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I think it could be a pretty good one.
Yep.
And hell, it'd just be nice to have a version of Silver, like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like Silver is one of those characters that on paper, and by paper, quite literally, the comics also count. It'd be nice to have a version of Silver that's cool. Uh, he's one of the few characters who I think has a better voice actor now than he did before. So I think it'd be just nice to have a good game for him to be in.
Yeah.
Nice. For a lot of these, if a lot of these characters are never going to be allowed to have character development again, it'd be nice to get one last romp with them back when they did have character development. Get a good, get Shadow, arguably Shadow's best story since Adventure 2, retold again, remixed.
And maybe that will remind everyone that, these characters were once good. There's a reason why people like them.
Yeah, and I mean, Sonic, you could go one of two ways. You could try to fix his story and, redeem it and, have Roger do an okay job. Or you could double down on Roger Sonic and have him be a straight baller player, definitely trying to get with that, Iblis. Like, yeah. Yeah. They could either play it up or play it down, but either way, I think having a fresh take would be interesting, to say the very least, with that version of Sonic. That version of Sonic, I'd still argue is a more compelling character than a version of him we got in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Not that the bar is particularly high.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, even if we got a very below average Sonic that we got in '06, he's still better
Yeah.
than where we've been.
And Tails doesn't really do much of anything in '06. But if you
Which
don't,
already makes him better than the
which makes it
last
better
10.
than any depiction of Tails in a video game.
I mean, Knuckles can't get worse. Every game since '06, he's just been pushed into things, which I think started with '06.
Yeah.
So, can't get worse. Get a game where Rouge and Omega have lines, and Amy has maybe more than 3 scenes, and a game where Blaze the Cat exists.
Yeah.
They could do so many side modes. They could have, like, if, theoretically, if this was based off Frontiers' mechanics, they could even take some of those side modes. There's a lot of fishing locations in Soliana.
Yeah.
Oh my god, imagine Big the Cat on, like, the Riviera with, like, the striped shirt kind of taking you on a canoe, like, out fishing. Or a gondola out
Yeah.
fishing.
Oh man.
You gotta help me find Froggy. He's out in the entire ocean. He's lost in the Mediterranean Ocean.
I'm laughing because I'm also thinking about like if they did like an Adventure 2 thing and Big was in the cutscenes. I'm imagining the scene where Blaze dies and Big's just fishing in the lava.
I was watching that cutscene again. Not to get too far off topic. I was watching the cutscene for the end of Silver's story again, and I was just thinking, like, I'm just waiting for, after the camera pans away, for Heihachi Mishima to just throw Silver in the volcano. Iblis looks like the final boss of a modern Tekken game.
Yeah.
Story would have been over faster if the Mishima family was there. But yeah, I think there's a lot they could do. They could flesh out the game. They could have the power-ups work.
Yeah. How the power ups work as intended. Maybe you could spruce up the combat a little bit.
They
Maybe
could,
make the
honestly, I
bosses good.
mean, the bosses are fine. They're not terrible. They're really rudimentary, but like the bosses are the least of my concern. I think a big potential is to take the Final Fantasy VII approach to like the map and like make Soliana like a big ass town. Like
Yeah.
make Soliana like really in depth. I think that would also go a long way. Just get some extra stuff to do. Like flesh out Soliana, That's also one thing I think they would do if they remade Sonic Adventure 1 would be to flesh out Station Square and Mystic Ruins to be like more involved locations. Uh,
Yeah.
Much bigger locales, kind of like the biomes that Frontiers has. Just really kind of expand those areas out. Hell, it'd be cool if you could explore the future, like, you know, the Iblis future, explore the lab, make these areas that you go to, because there's a lot of areas in '06 that are you go to, but like you can't really explore them. And like they don't have to be super involved, but it would be nice like to explore around the lab or hell even just restructure the level so that there's more um going on
Yeah.
and it's not just go to the gold ring. Add, mid level or what? You can make acts, kind of like how, the other Sonic games, you know, have like acts between levels. If you want to still have like the levels not be too long, you know, make more levels in there. Make like Aquatic Base Act 1 and Act 2 and have it kind of expand out so you can have like more exploration.
Yeah.
Make more levels. You're already all three of your main characters already go through the same levels. Can't hurt to add a few more levels.
Yeah. Add some SADX style missions. What? It's a big open world. Like there's a bunch of like bonus stuff you could get.
You could just say add missions. You don't have to say add bad missions.
Give the medals a function. That's something you can do.
Yeah. And be like, I think the first Sonic game to actually use your completion collective towards something.
Yeah.
They could use the chaos control to go back in time to Green Hill Zone. And that's how the cyberspace levels will happen. They'll go and have time portals open because it's Iblis, and that's how you go to Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone.
Nah, screw that. Give me Bridge Zone and Hydrosity. Go back to Silver Castle. Yeah.
Toxic Cave Zone.
Yeah, Toxic Cave. Make it like a swamp level in Dark Souls, and your energy meter gets depleted if you stand in the toxic wastes. But yeah, nah. Point being, there's a lot of stuff you can do with '06's Foundation. And if you made it good, it could be a proverbial playground.
Yeah, there. That's I think the biggest takeaway about '06 is that '06's biggest disappointment is how good it could have been
Yeah.
and how mediocre to below average it is. On a good day, you can say that '06 is a poor man's attempt at remaking the original Sonic Adventure.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big disservice to what it really, the potential of it could have been. Could have been so much more if they had more time. Half their
Yeah.
development staff wasn't shunted off to go make a shitty Wii version, which then turned into Sonic and the Secret Rings,
Which
which
is
I actually didn't hate until I learned that fact, and now I kind of actually dislike Sonic and the Secret Rings, whereas before it used to be just a thing that existed for me. But
and now
now knowing the fact that
this game has
06,
blood on its hands.
yeah, I now actively dislike Secret Rings. Still actually really like Black Knight because Black
Yeah.
Knight didn't do anything. Black Knight was only the result of something that already happened.
Black Knight just
Secret
came
Rings,
from evil, that's all.
yeah, Secret Rings was created. Yeah, that's also the other thing. You can just have Secret Rings never happen.
Yeah.
I guess since I think that's kind of our biggest one. Is there anything else you can think of that should get a remake? Any other games that you think should be given their time in the limelight? Any games you think can be improved?
Oh man. It's just a wide well of things that can improve from a remake.
Oh
Like,
yeah, Star Fox Adventures. Give me a new Star Fox
yeah,
Adventure.
Star Fox Adventures, uh, redeem that game.
Oh, you can just make a dinosaur planet if you can't get the thought. If you can somehow like finagle with Nintendo to like make Dinosaur Planet like an Xbox exclusive, or not even an exclusive, but like an Xbox like PC release game or something, uh, and just take all the Nintendo. If they like somehow could make Dinosaur Planet like without having to shave off too much, like you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
Like take all the Star Fox out and basically remake that N64 Dinosaur Planet game. Like if they could somehow do that, that'd be phenomenal. It's not even that Star Fox is the issue. It's that clearly a lot of compromises had to come in when Star Fox was added into it, and a lot of design decisions couldn't
yeah.
necessarily be changed. And if they were to just remake the original N64 Dinosaur Planet, I think they'd be able to do a lot of better. It would basically branch off a different way in a much, I think, more cohesive way.
Man, there's a lot of rareware in today's discussion, huh?
It's like they're a great developer, but there's definitely opportunities where their ambition uh, and sort of the hands they're dealt have severely hampered what they really wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh man.
Then they just had to make Connect Sports games until Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. And, good for them. That game apparently turned out to be quite good after its launch.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think there's like another game that could feasibly get a remake that's jumping out at me right now. You know?
We can always come back to this topic later. I'm just trying to, my brain's just trying to catch up and think if there's anything else before we close off. Because I know as soon as we end this discussion, I'm going to come up with like 5 more.
Oh, yeah.
They
Huh.
should remake. They should remake Pokemon Channel, where he's just using streaming services instead of channels, and that way all of your shows are on demand, so you don't have to wait in real time.
Yeah.
At first, this was a joke, but now I've actually decided this is a really good idea. Make it free to play, free to start, I suppose.
Yeah.
Fuck, damn it, that's actually a business move I think Nintendo and Pokemon Company would do. Find a way to monetize subscriptions or find a way to monetize in-app purchases of this free-to-play Pokemon channel
I
where
mean,
he's using like Netflix.
conceivably, we could do a lightning round of remasters we'd like to see. But I don't know. I don't know if we really have time for that.
I mean, we have as much time as we need, and now that you've already introduced it, now you're kind of
All right.
obligated to do
Now,
it. Otherwise, you look like an asshole.
yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
And the point of a lightning round is it's supposed to be quick, so
Okay. Remaster the GBA version of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Like the only Kingdom Hearts
yeah,
remake I'm about to ask for.
yeah.
Obviously, Tecmo's remastering the Monster Hunter games. Like remaster 3 and 4, especially 4. It's like my second favorite game of all time. We need. Okay, I'm going to bring the magnifying glass back on Bandai Namco for a second. Remaster some of the other Tales games. Like like the Zillia games or Abyss or Graces. Like these games are like stranded on like the PS3 or 3DS.
Oh, Joe, real quick before I let you continue, if I had a nickel for every game franchise that got a remaster of PS1 games number 1 and 2 that do not have a 3 and 4 remastered, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but considering we need Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4.
Yes, we need those. You need. Ooh. We need to remaster the Ratchet and Clank games. Do it right this time.
Remaster all of the PS2 ones and do it right this time. Don't get freaking Sanzaru Games. Get a real developer.
Oh yeah, and if you're not going to remake
When their
it,
shirt, when their logo looks like a shirt you'd buy for your kid in the mid 2000s at Walmart, that's how you know they're not a great company.
yeah. Damn, that's a Mondo burn right there.
Yeah, but it's also true. Look at the Sanzaru Games logo.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why he fucking slayed me. Oh, yeah, so this also extends to Jack and Daxter. Give those games some solid remasters.
Pokemon Coliseum and XD, give me a remaster of them, because they're sure as hell not going to do anything else with them besides just touch them up.
Yeah, remaster them. Thousand Year Door. Like, people have been asking that for a long time.
You can charge $60, and I know you will. Just do it.
Just do it. People would be willing to pay $60 for a Thousand Year Door. It is a bargain compared to actually playing Thousand Year Door.
At that point, if we're just going to go with expensive games, then like half of the GameCube games.
Yeah. Remaster the 3DS Fire Emblem games. You sure love reminding people of them.
Oh, real quick, Chibi Robo should actually get a full-on remake.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And don't make it sequel a Walmart exclusive.
Yeah, don't make it a Costco exclusive. Chibi Robo replugged. Only at Trader Joe's.
It's a DoorDash exclusive.
Blimpy's exclusive.
Literally, people who don't even know what that means, it thinks you're saying something sexual. Blimp.
Just do a low budget remaster, like put it on like the PlayStation thing, like Plus thing, Kingsfield, like the original Souls, like.
Can you remake Shenmue 1 and 2, but not have it be done by the team who did Shenmue 3?
Remake Shenmue 3.
You just remake all three. And remake Shenmue the animation, even though it's actually kind of good. Just put it all together.
Remake the entire Shenmue franchise.
Except you actually end it. I love you, Suzuki. But God, why did you leave Shenmue 3 with a cliffhanger? You bastard. You ain't finishing that thing. You fool.
Fool, have you learned nothing in these 17 years?
Remaster Family Guy in a video game. Okay, that's a joke one, but actually remaster or remake Simpsons Hit and Run. I think that's going to happen in the next 3 years.
It's a crime that it hasn't already happened.
Yeah. I think Disney probably... I think that maybe they would have done something had Disney not bought Simpsons and changed sort of the flow and their priorities. But no, Disney's licensing things again. Who knows? We'll see how it goes in like the next 3 years.
Yeah, we'll see how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, but it feels like at this point it's like not a matter of if but when kind of a deal.
Nintendo, make a $10 Ice Climber game.
Wasn't there supposed to be one on the WiiWare, but it got like canceled or something? Maybe that's just a speculative rumor, but I don't know. I feel like that would have been the perfect time to remake that and like Balloon Fight. That's why they didn't do a lot of any. That's what I was saying about like Earthbound is like that kind of era of like remaking games without having to go too crazy into them, and you can kind of keep like their chibi 8-bit style. Like that would have been the time to remake, Balloon Fight. Would have been the time to remake Takaharu's or Castle. Mysterious Murasame Castle. Yo, imagine Mysterious Murasame Castle, but remade as like a Souls game.
Ooh, that would be cool.
like a full like redo. Like that'd be cool for Nintendo to have an exclusive Souls franchise that's basically like Ghost of Tsushima or Neo or something, but with like 80s Nintendo style, or like 80s Japan style. I
Yeah,
mean, they could also go with the gritty, realistic style, but I
yeah,
think it'd be fun if they did like more of like the Nintendo-y. Well, I guess Nintendo-y closer to like a Metroid style
yeah,
art style. I feel like I'm phrasing this weird, but I think if you kind of, I think I'd like the Hover audience kind of like read between the lines of what I'm trying to blurb out and like get an idea of what I'm referring to.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, Murasame Castle would be actually a pretty sweet game to get like a, I guess at this point it'd be a reboot.
yeah.
But
Um, all right, another Sony game. Tokyo Jungle is neat, and it's stranded on the PS3. I didn't get to play that game much, but I kind of enjoyed it. All right. Unless anything jumps out at me in the next 10 seconds, I think we're good. All right. Well, anyone hearing this, write a comment down below on games you'd like to see remade.
or you can just tell us what some of your favorite remakes are and tell us what exactly about them was so much better than the original, or what do you
Yeah.
think improved it and really add some quality of life to it. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't even get a chance to talk about a lot of the other really solid remakes that have been done in the past. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely we want to hear like what you guys think. A good what constitutes a good remake, I guess, is another thing you could tell us. Like what constitutes an actually good remake versus just getting the job done.
Indeed. All right. Well, if that is it, this has been Joe,
And Dan,
and catch you next time at the table.
see you around.